Yes. Hey, everybody, welcome. I'm just going to go ahead and get it started. Welcome to Flameless Fireside.
All right. Good luck, guys.
I am one of your hosts. I am John Brailsford. I'm here with Terry and Tara. And we are joined today by Clint, who is here to share a little bit about his life. And then we're going to talk about a topic that he knows all about through his experiences. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Anyway, we just want to remind you to stay muted and keep your videos off. So Clint, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, there you are in your backyard.
In my backyard.
And you're not even wearing a coat. You're a very hardy man.
Well, we can adjust that just a little bit, and I can show it to you with snow if you want.
Hey, whatever you want to show up behind you, that's fine with me.
Backyard too.
Right?
But I'm not from Las Vegas, like John says.
Yeah, you're a little north of Vegas, aren't you?
Oh yeah, a long ways north of Vegas.
Yeah, when I grew up in Las Vegas, and so I almost felt like we were more kind of Southern California direction, and you were more, Reno was kind of the Northern California connection, and like you were closer to San Francisco than Vegas.
Yeah, well, Sacramento would actually be closer, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we were closer to LA. So, well, welcome, Clint. How are you today? It's good to see you.
Doing good. Doing good.
You're one of the standbys that is one of the regulars that's on here watching the show. Oh, I'm just going to adjust my camera here a little bit. So let's get started by getting to know you a little bit. I mean, all we have so far is, after party stuff, but you're on the hot seat tonight. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about Clint, and you can start anywhere from when you were 5 years old to last week, whatever you think's relevant. Go.
Well, my name's Clint Anderson. Currently, I'm living in Reno, Nevada. I've been here, I officially moved here the end of August of 2020. Prior to that, I was in Waco, Texas, lived there from 2008 to 2020. Fort Worth before that, Denver, Colorado before that. Grew up in Salt Lake.
The tour of the West.
Yeah, I've bounced around a little bit. It seems like I think I've got an average of 6.5 years in a house since I bought the first one.
That's amazing.
So is it work that takes you back and forth everywhere?
Generally, it's been work that's caused me to move.
Got it.
And so I've been married twice. I have 3 daughters from the first marriage. At least 2 of them are on right now. I was expecting the 3rd one, but so I'm sure we'll
be on our best behavior, Clint. We promise not to embarrass you, at least not very much.
And one of them just raised her hand, so you now know who the other one is.
Right?
John only speaks for himself. I cannot make promises like that.
Yeah, Terry will embarrass you.
Understand. Let's see, I said I've been married twice. The first marriage was for 16 years. That one ended in 2004. 2006, I got married again. That one lasted just under 3. It ended the end of 2006. And I have been single since then.
Got it. Okay. So
by trade, I'm an electrical engineer.
Oh, there you go.
I've worked on all kinds of weird things over my career, mainly for the military, government type stuff. I've worked for Lockheed,
so you can't tell us really what you're working on.
Tactical Air Support's where I'm working now. It's been a lot of fun. I can tell you, I have hardware that I worked on that went to Mars.
Oh,
Awesome.
My current manager is a twice shuttle member,
Oh.
crew member.
Wow.
I've
That's-
had an interesting career in a lot of ways, and a lot of people would consider it just one big nerd, and I'm reasonably nerdy. Yeah.
Okay. So you're an international man of intrigue, you know?
Yeah, we can
I
say
think
that.
that qualifies as that. You don't have to be a spy. You're a scientist working on, secret defense, technology. That's fascinating. So what have you been doing besides that, for the last decade or so?
Big hobby of mine, keeping the nerd theory going, is amateur radio.
Oh,
Done a lot with that over the last years. After divorce number one, I was involved with some single adults in the ward I was living, and they were going through a class. Some of them get their licenses, and I picked up the book that they were looking at on the table and looked through it and go, well, I can do this. And so shortly thereafter, I had my first license, and it's grown from there.
sweet. Is that like ham radio operator?
Ham radio, yep.
Got it.
And then that got me into doing a little bit of storm spotting, going out and looking for tornadoes and stuff. I've been in the Waco Emergency Operations Center when we've set off the tornado sirens in Waco.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that freaks me out a little bit. I grew up in among the mountains, even in Vegas, there's mountains.
Yep.
And I remember the first time I drove through Denver and then out into Kansas. And I remember just thinking to myself, it's just scary. It was scary. It's like an ocean of wheat and corn. And you're like, you feel insecure,
Yes.
And I remember one time I was speeding through, I think it was Nebraska. No, it was Indiana or somewhere in there, and it was really flat. And there were storms all around. And the highway patrolman pulled me over, and he literally did not give me a ticket because he felt sorry for me because I was so overwhelmed that I was going to get blown away by a tornado. And he just said, I tell you what, you're going to be okay. Just keep going, but slow down. And and if you see a tornado you pull over into a ditch and lay down.
Mm-hmm. My youngest daughter, who's on here with us tonight, she got into the storm spotting as well. All three of my daughters actually have a ham radio license.
Oh, awesome.
Kim's used it the most. Lisa's not used hers much. Jessica's barely used hers, but that's okay. They've got the license.
Yeah. And now they at least kind of know what to do in case of emergency, right?
Yeah.
The question is, do they have the equipment?
Actually, yes, they do.
You got them geared up?
At least an HT.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're good to go.
I bought them each an HT.
Yep.
Oh, and there's the third daughter coming in.
That's awesome. As soon as the apocalypse rolls out, they'll be our communication team. So
absolutely.
Anyway.
I'll admit I've got a little more gear than they do.
Yeah, probably.
I lived in Missouri for a little while, and I've been through 2 tornadoes when I lived in Missouri, and yeah, it's absolutely terrifying. I was there for the Joplin tornado, which was awful, and then just a smaller tornado, but it's crazy, and it totally makes you feel small. I think that's the only time that I felt completely out of control of my surroundings. So I can't imagine wanting to chase them. But
The fury of nature.
I will tell you, I have no intention to get as close as some of the idiots do on TV. But my basic theory is I've got some training, I've got some experience. And I can get out and give a picture of what's happening, and I'm in direct communication with the National Weather Service when I'm out doing that. So I've got some experts watching my back a little bit.
Nice.
Yeah, that was really a scary time. So yeah, that's awesome that you do that though.
One of the funner ones was this was shortly after, I think I was married to wife number 2 at the time, but I can't tell you which of the kids right now at girls camp, and we had this massive storm come through, and it was headed direct towards the area where their girls camp was at.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of fun to be able to get onto the radio and actually ask directly the National Weather Service folks if I needed to go wake a few people up to get those girls some
Oh,
morning.
wow.
Fortunately, they gave me an answer that said it should dissipate before it gets there. They should be just fine, and they were.
Got it.
The very
I
first
bet
one
one of them can mention it in the chat if she knows who she is. So anyway, Terry, I see you again.
Okay,
We had a little
perfect. Oh my
glitch.
gosh. Oh,
Yeah,
it kicked me out and then it put me back in. And then I was like, what's going on?
Terry, just stop hiding. You know, be open with us.
You
It's
know,
okay.
sometimes I feel a little introverted, John. You don't need to target me, okay?
Well, we'll go back to Clint then.
Perfect.
What-
So we're talking about the tornado thing. Actually, I was in my first tornado when I was 8, and I was in Minneapolis, and my grandma was like, oh, just go into the bathroom and put this mattress over the tub. You'll be fine. And she left me. And people wonder why I need therapy now.
Yeah,
You know, it's kind of sad. In my house, instead of going in the house and hiding, we're always jumping out in the car and going out to watch them from the car. And we're going,
Oh man.
there is something wrong with this picture.
I have
Right.
a horrible story to tell you. As an adult, I did not realize that this affected me in such a way, right? John could probably relate to this because he is a therapist. I had no idea until later I watched Twister. I had nightmares for a year.
Ooh, yeah. I like that movie. I like
Why?
watching it as a movie and not actually being there.
But what's even worse, I cannot believe I'm admitting this on the podcast. is
You know, I actually met a guy, and he's got pictures of him setting a pod just like they did in Twister, with the tornado right over his shoulder behind him, with one of his assistants, happens to be a lady with him, running back towards their vehicle to get out of there. And it was almost a carbon copy of Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton in the movie.
Yeah.
Easy.
So what I was going to say is, years later, I went on an adults trip to Disney World. We went to Universal Studios. And we had 3 tornadoes when I landed. And it's the first time that they had tornadoes in Orlando in years. So we decided to go to Universal Studios. What's the first ride that we decided to go on? Twister. I thought it was fine. I did not realize, being as short as I am, I could actually hurdle bleachers and a guardrail and go through the emergency exit door.
But you found out.
Well, I did. I run pretty
That's
fast.
one way to exit the ride,
Yeah.
you know?
I was
So
like, nope, I'm out.
I thought the coolest thing about the Joplin tornado, if there was anything cool about it, it leveled Joplin. I mean, completely leveled it. But
A massive tornado.
yeah, the church was leveled too, except for one wall. And I shared the picture with Brent. I've got to find it again for you guys. But there was one wall that was left up in the church, and it was the big picture of Christ washing the apostles' feet, and it was completely untouched. It was really cool. Like, so, and everybody's all, gathered together to serve and help each other. And yeah, the entire church was
That's
leveled
awesome.
except for that one picture. It was cool.
boy, he washed the daylights out of their feet that day.
Oh man. True.
Right.
Yeah.
Jiminy Christmas. Yeah, so I've been in some hurricanes, but I've never been in a tornado, and that's not something I look forward to. So we'll just keep it at that.
I haven't done a full up hurricane. I've done a couple of tropical storms that were the remnants of hurricanes, but
Right?
that
Yeah,
was kind
I
of
lived
fun.
on Florida Panhandle for a while, so that was bound to happen. So
One was Marietta, Georgia, and the other one was Long Island, New York.
got it.
Both of them I was on a
Well,
work trip.
So you are a ham radio operator and have your own license. And what else has been going on, Clint? Tell us about your life. Any other exciting things happen in your world?
Well, just bought a new house.
Okay. With
I
that,
had-
and that's your literal backyard behind
That
you.
is my literal backyard.
Yeah.
I'm on 10 acres out here north of Reno. Let's see, some of you would recognize that map. Some of you are too young for it.
Oh, that's the Ponderosa.
That's the Ponderosa. And I live just over off the side of the screen here.
That's
Now we know
awesome.
who the older ones are on the podcast.
Here's behind me. Let's see if I can point to it. Right in here is Reno and the little red dot.
Oh, that's where you
up
live?
There, that's where I live.
Wow.
You
I'm
just
out
totally
on-
turned into a weatherman, Clint. Just saying.
There you go. So you live in an historic area of the West.
Mhm.
Okay. I remember going and visiting that area when I was a kid too. But I mean, what Nevada and worth their salt would not go see the Ponderosa, right? So
I've been up in the Tahoe area a little bit. That's kind of fun to go see. Beautiful up there.
yeah, that's amazing.
The background picture on my Facebook page is actually from up there in that
From
neighborhood.
Tahoe. You know, it's interesting.
Virginia City was a fun one to visit too.
Oh yeah. Well, and were they closer to the Tahoe area? Was the Ponderosa up in the mountains? Because I forget now.
Well,
Or was it
if
out?
I get out of the way,
Oh, okay.
there's Lake
It was
Tahoe.
south of Virginia City.
Here's north is actually over towards me right now. Virginia City's east, Carson City's south, Reno's more or less north.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
So most of you may not know this, but I was actually a real estate agent for a few years, in between doing therapy on both ends. But I had an instructor that had an interesting story about Lake Tahoe. Now I've kind of given it away a little bit, but he and a couple other developers created, Aspen, Colorado. And basically, so they created this little town, and of course they sold these lots, these properties for thousands of dollars, and then it became Aspen, and so it was this famous thing, and he became wealthy off of that. But he had an assistant who said, "Hey, listen, I have an opportunity to go create something like this in another part of the country. Would it be okay if I left and went ahead and started that?" And he said, "Absolutely. Just, go take everything you learned doing this and have fun." And so anyway, a few years later, the guy invites him to go see this development that he created. And at the time, he offered him any lot on the development for $10,000. And this is in the mid 60s.
Oh,
Okay.
he'd be very rich right now.
Yeah, and it turned out that he developed Incline Village in Tahoe. And so now, this guy was teaching us, and he said, that is the worst mistake of my life. He said, there are lots that I could have had for 10,000 in the 60s that go for over 100,000 per waterfront foot.
100,000 per waterfront foot. Yes. I was
Yeah,
gonna say you're
on
off by
the
zero,
lake, on
'cause
Lake
it's millions
Tahoe.
of dollars for property up in
So
there.
he said if you had a shoreline of like 20 feet, it would be like $2 million. And so the property itself, the whole thing with a house on it would be like $10 million. So anyway, I just thought that was freaking
Well,
hilarious.
you'll notice I'm a long ways from Tahoe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 acres is easier to come by where you are probably.
Well, I will also admit that this 10 acres was 3 times the cost of any other house I'd ever purchased.
Wow. You're
Uh,
land banking, you're preparing for the growth that will come.
Possibly. I just wanted a place to get away from it. And I believe strongly in social distancing. So you can kind of see how many neighbors I've got.
Are you a bit of an introvert, Clint? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I'm a great big introvert.
Or are you super outgoing like Terry?
You know, big introvert.
Oh, are you? Okay.
I think you
Or-
say
or
stuff just to see
really-
the look on my face.
Or like me, you know, I'm kind of an introvert too. So,
Whatever. Yin yang.
Mr.
But
That's other remember me now.
yeah, coming out here to Reno financially probably didn't really make sense.
Right.
But there was a lot of things that went with it that I think has been a really good thing, really neat.
Good. What are some of those things? What are the advantages?
Okay. When I lived in Texas, I was nearest daughter was Salt Lake. And
Right.
for a while I had me in Texas. I had a daughter in Washington, DC area, a daughter in California, and a daughter in Utah. So we had 4 time zones covered.
Wow.
As
So
it is right,
good luck getting together.
good
on
luck
a
getting
regular
together.
basis.
As it is right now, it's about 2.5 hours to my oldest daughter and my grandkids.
Oh, good.
So now my grandkids actually know who I am and recognize me when they see me.
Right.
Last Saturday, I jumped in the car, went over, watched my oldest granddaughter play soccer. That was a lot of fun.
That's exciting.
Uh,
Isn't it? I mean, having you learn, I mean, that's the greatest benefit of all is just the family
Yeah.
stuff, right?
yeah, I'm in the middle between the kids. Now, my other 2 daughters are now in Utah. And so I'm in the middle between it. We got I-80, that's the big collector between all of us. But it makes it a lot easier. Although with COVID, I haven't gone east as much as I have gone west. And hopefully between Christmas and Thanksgiving, we're going to solve some of that.
But at least it's doable now. You can.
It's a lot more doable. I was working for fairly large aerospace companies when I was in Texas and Colorado for that matter. The place I'm working for now is about 280 employees, give or take.
Oh,
we're scattered
okay.
across the country. But I'm basically there's 2 electrical engineers with the company, well, a 3rd now. And the engineering group itself is about 5 people. And so I'm now kind of more of a big fish in a small pond as opposed to being a small fish in a great big pond. And that's been a challenge.
But that's
I
good.
grew up-
So kind of like moving up in the
Mhm.
world a little bit.
Yeah. My job
like
title
that.
is actually lead systems engineer. So
Nice.
that's nice.
This
I
is
grew
why
up-
I like to associate with you, Clint, is just because of your fame and fortune, and I like hanging out with the big people, the amazing people out there. You know?
Now, for all of you horse fans out there,
Yes.
There is a Clint Anderson, very famous, lives in Stephenville, Texas. Horse trainer, big time popular horse trainer. I'm not him.
Okay. You're the electrical engineer, Hamite radio.
I'm the other one.
Oh, okay. Got it.
There.
Well, listen, obviously you have experienced a lot of changes in your life. Fair enough. I mean, a
Fair
couple
enough.
divorces, multiple moves, career shifts, all that. And I'm sure that some of them were good. They were opportunities to, like you said, be closer to your kids or have career advancement, but I'm sure some of them were challenging, no doubt. So today's topic is about change, and how, I guess, I forget the exact title, but the idea behind it is, how can we take advantage of change or see the good side of change? And so go ahead and share with us, what are some of the things that you have learned over the years as your life has shifted, some very often in ways you didn't predict? What have you learned through those experiences?
A couple of things that stand out at me, and I've given this a little thought since I was foolish enough to answer Celeste's emails and texts and
Yes.
that. Change is one of those things that I've gone through some really weird things at times.
Right.
Things that were struggles. When I hired fresh out of college into what was then Martin Marietta in Denver, became part of Lockheed Martin. I worked there for 13 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd bought one house, I'd bought a second house. All three kids were born while I lived there in Colorado. And one day I get called into my boss's office and told they no longer needed my services. And that was just devastating.
Right. I can imagine.
And I'm going, okay, well, what do I do? And, I think I spent the next few days kind of in a daze a little bit, but I ended up doing some job hunting training through LDS Social Services that was fantastic. They had some great people
Awesome.
there. And the first thing I ended up doing was another division of Lockheed had just won a big contract, a little thing called the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter.
Okay.
And so I applied to Fort Worth with Lockheed.
And because we know you lived there, we already know what happened.
8 weeks later, I'm working
In Fort Worth?
in Fort Worth for Lockheed.
Nice.
They treated, since I got the application in before I was formally laid off. I'd had the notice, but I still had the application in. And they treated me like I was an employee. They paid all of the relocation, the real estate fees, all of that stuff.
Oh, wow.
It was wonderful. I ended up with a salary boost, and it turned out to be a great thing to move. It helped a lot of ways, but yet this one was forced upon me.
Right.
And
you were forced to improve your situation.
Mm-hmm.
I love it when I'm forced to improve my situation.
And
Right.
That's the kind of force I like.
Usually subtle doesn't work with me.
Right.
2 before upside the head is starting to get my attention, but anything less than that probably isn't going to do it.
Yes.
Or if you're like me, you just need to shove off the cliff and you're good.
Yeah. And a couple of years after I moved to Fort Worth, I ended up going through a divorce. That was a tough time in my life.
I'll bet.
Really tore me up.
Yeah.
I don't want to embarrass her too bad, but there's one of my daughters who's on here that Christmas that year was the first I really had the kids with me. We were 10 days in a little 2-bedroom apartment, and she was just sicker than a dog the whole 10 days.
Oh, wow.
And it was an interesting experience. And then I was trying my best to
Was
keep
she like cold and flu kind of sick, or more stomach kind of sick?
let me just say female issues from hell.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. That
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody. So glad I'm here with you all.
But, you know, it was little things like that, that it was a change. It was doing it different. The first year, and there she's commenting on it. But
I love that.
that first year was a whole lot of changes, a whole lot of differences that we went through, and trying to see the kids when I could see them, learning how to adjust to first, third, and fifth weekends and Tuesday nights and Thursday nights, whichever it was. And, you know, it was difficult at times.
Mhm.
At that point in time, I was living fairly close to where my ex-wife was. She was in the house at first. I ended up with the house and ended up moving back in the house, and she moved a couple miles down the road. We were in the same ward. That was an experience.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
So it was a roller coaster ride.
It was a roller coaster ride. She got remarried, 2006. I got remarried. Putting your current spouse in the same relief society with your former spouse is something I do not recommend.
Right?
Caused all kinds of problems.
Oh.
So was the second marriage in a way, you know, partly because of that, you know, kind of doomed from the start in a way, or were there a lot of, you know, hard feelings about that?
Let me get to part B of the move and we'll talk about some of that, but yes.
Okay. You take it from
But-
here, man. We'll
but,
let you roll with it.
It made some challenges. Well, I'd lost my mom in 2006.
Wow.
That was a challenge. I just got married to my second wife at that point in time. Mom passed away. I'm living in the same area, fairly close to my kids. All of us in the same ward. That was interesting. Well, 2008, I got another one of those calls from my boss.
Did they no longer need your services?
They no longer needed my services in Fort Worth.
What?
They got the first JSF flying. They felt like they had enough people. They said your services aren't necessary. They gave me a 60-day notice, which I found was unheard of.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
I redid a lot of the steps I did the first time. And I quickly found a job fair that a company down in Waco or Greenville, Texas, they had different divisions of the same company, was both hiring at that point in time. Went to the job fair, started talking to some people, and within not very long, I was down in Waco interviewing with them. that was an experience. That was the
Mhm.
only job interview I've ever gone on where I went through 8 separate interviews and I was there over 8 hours doing it.
What
Wow.
That was wild. And
was it worth it, Clint?
yes, it was,
Okay, good.
because I ended up getting hired. And then the question became, now you guys gave me a 60-day notice. What happens if I leave before the 60 days is up?
Right.
So I left a week earlier than I needed to. Left Lockheed on a Friday, went to work for L3 on a Monday,
Right.
took 20 years of severance pay and nuked a whole bunch of bills.
Nice.
That
So-
got wife number 2 out of the same relief society as wife number 1. That was
Wow.
kind of
can you
interesting.
And that was a relief in and
That
of
was a
itself.
relief.
Can you say mission accomplished?
Yes, yes.
It's
But again, I
interesting.
was forced into
but-
that one.
So Clint, it's kind of interesting. I'm listening to your story and I have a family member that has a very similar Martin Marietta, Lockheed Martin, and then she ended up at Vandenberg. So it's interesting. You guys kind of went and you probably may know her.
It's possible.
So I'll have to put her name in the chat and then you can tell me.
Right. So
It's
you're going
possible.
through a lot of changes, Clint,
Mhm.
in those years. So what are you learning through the experience? Like, how did you survive it? Like, how did you adjust? What did you get better at through all that experience?
Well, you know, it became a situation of, I started to recognize that a lot of this didn't matter. Me getting too upset. I still went right to the edge of oblivion on some of this stuff, but
Right.
I got to where I handled it better.
Okay.
And a year after I get wife number 2 to Waco, she decides, well, you know, all the struggles we've been through, and I will tell you, I completely underestimated the difficulty of taking my 3 kids, and she had 2 kids, and blending that family, and 2 exes out there, and all of the struggles that went through that. And her 2 kids were special needs. One's on the autistic scale. The other one was, she had severe juvenile arthritis.
Oh, wow.
And
Known some kids
it
that
was,
struggle with that,
it,
and that's brutal.
it turned out to be quite a challenge. And then I'll just say it, their dad didn't do the best job of taking care of them once I'd married their mother. And
Right.
so there was a lot that fell on me with that. And there was a lot that just didn't work out. And it posed a lot of struggles. And
You know,
You
I
know-
noticed something similar with my second marriage. It just seemed like it kind of gets doomed from the start with all the extra. It's
All the
hard
extra-
enough kind of blending the families,
yep,
you know, kind of, you know, taking on those step parent roles and that kind of thing. And then if you start piling on it all, like, and exes can be huge on that. It's so important, and it's so sad that it should come to that. But in a way, like if I had a ton of drama with my ex, I can envision myself just not wanting to pull someone into that. You know, it's a nightmare.
That's
You know?
actually a good point that you say that, John, because a lot of people ask me why I've waited so long. I've been divorced 15 years. I've never remarried, only married one time. And that is the biggest reason, is because
Yeah.
my ex had a lot of drama and I'm just like, you know what? It's too much for me at times. And I just don't want to drag anybody into that. It's my own mess. So
Well, it's not even that I don't want to expose them to challenges. It's that I don't know if they can handle, and why should they want to handle it?
Absolutely.
And I mean, we say, hey, but I love you and I'm willing to go through this. And to some extent, I do think we need to let people make their own choices.
Right.
But I would say that I would want that person to really see me go through it for months, if not a year or two, to really get a feel for, here's what I'm dealing with. Or do you really want to sign up for this?
Yeah.
And you know what? I think after 6, 8, 12 months, if they really kind of see the patterns and they were like, yeah, this just isn't something that's going to overwhelm me. I really want to me, the benefits of being married to you and being a part of your family is worth it. Then, okay.
And I will say a little bit on my end as well, is that I was just trying to be there for the kids and to redirect them.
Right.
And, so that was my priority, was my kids and all of that. So I didn't have a lot of room on my plate, at all.
Right. Well, and if you have the drama with the ex, but the kids are handling it well, and they just go, oh, there goes mom or dad. Right. I know how that goes. And if anything, I'd like to have, someone more stable come into my life. There's a lot of factors, but yeah, I'm identifying with Clint, and just that, the things like that you didn't control for. It sounds like, second marriages are hard enough, but add on to them things like being laid off and moving and all those things can make it just impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it worked out such that we got down to Waco, and it didn't solve all the problems. And one night coming back from Waco, my middle daughter and my second wife had a fairly good argument in the car. I made the mistake.
And by good, you mean bad.
Oh, yes. Yes. And it was over, of all things, girls' camp. But as my daughter got out of the car, I made a comment to her that was, I think my then wife, ex-wife, she's usually really good on people things, but I think she's missed the boat on this one, and I'm sorry. And I'm sorry you guys had this fight, and got the kids back to their moms and in the house, and we're back in the car headed back from Fort Worth down to Waco. And I got read the riot act because I took the wrong side on that fight.
Yeah.
And things just never recovered after that. That was like March. And by May, she basically started looking for another place to live. And June, I said, this is just not going anywhere. And she informed me she was moving back up to where her parents lived, up Flower Mound. And
wow. So it starts deteriorating.
That we filed for divorce at that point. I actually filed on that one. And because I couldn't take the exposure and the risk financially with everything. And one thing or another, but it was almost a relief when that divorce went final fairly fast. And I was out from under all of that extra pressure.
Yeah.
And about that same time, it's while I'm going through the divorce with wife number 2, ex-wife number 1 decided she'd gotten remarried a year before I did. And her husband had a couple of kids in upstate New York.
Oh.
And they wanted to get closer to his kids. So they packed up and moved back to Royersford, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
Philadelphia. So I went from having a house with usually 4, sometimes 7 of us in there to just me in a matter of months.
Well, there's an adjustment.
There's another change. And so I'm alone in this house. I'm in Waco, Texas. I'm divorced. I'm living in an area. At that time, there was 2 wards and a branch in Waco.
Got
We're
it.
part of the Killeen, Texas stake. There was a dating pool that I would have called zero amongst the LDS members of the church. There
Right.
was 3 ladies that were single. They were all older than me. One was, I will just say, completely off the charts on the crazy scale. There was.
That's one way of putting it. I'm a therapist and I put it that way sometimes too.
And
So-
it just zero attraction to the other 2. And
Right.
so I had got an awful lot of help and a lot of support out of the single adult program after divorce 1. I ended up hooking up with a group of single adults there in the Fort Worth
we don't
area.
use that term anymore, Clint.
Hooking up.
Yeah.
John.
Netflix now. Now we see Netflix and chill.
Right. Hey, I'm just
And we're
saying.
not we're not talking about winter when she says chill.
Right.
But
Thanks,
I ended up
Go ahead.
getting taken under the wing, let's put it that way, by a group of singles there in Fort Worth.
Yes.
And they drugged me out to events. Some
Mhm.
of those were less than comfortable because both me and my ex-wife were there.
Oh yeah.
That was interesting for a couple of them. But and then it was actually at a single adult event a couple years later that I met wife number 2.
Right.
I had a good experience there. So I couldn't wait to get involved with single adults after the second divorce went final.
But it wasn't the same in Waco.
But it wasn't the same in Waco. So at that point, I'm driving 100 miles, 2 hours up to stuff in Fort Worth, a couple hours down to Austin. Anything I did at those was long distance, if you will.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
I just found it to be a big struggle. And I went to a lot of stuff and put a lot of miles on cars over those years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was taking its toll on me. But then I also realized I'm doing the same thing over and over. And it's just not getting me anywhere.
Right.
Well, August of 2017 rolls around. I'd been at L3 since 2008. So I'm closing in on like 9 years there. Just past 9 years.
Uh-huh.
When I hired in, their employment went double, almost tripled, and it went back to even less than when I hired in. They had done 3 or 4 pretty good layoffs, a couple of really weird contracts for 747 VIP airplanes for certain Middle Eastern governments.
Whoa. See, there's that interesting background.
I stayed away from those. I didn't work on those planes. I
okay.
somehow managed to stay in the
So
spy plane business.
some Saudi prince would have an airplane or someone from Yemen or, well, not Yemen, Dubai. There you go. Or Kuwait or something.
Brunei
like
and Oman, but I shouldn't say that.
what? Yeah.
Brunei and
we
Oman,
We
but I
didn't hear
shouldn't
what
say
you
that.
said. Right.
Is that like omen?
Close enough.
Got it.
But L3 lost their shirts on those airplanes. And there was management chaos and all kinds of stuff going on.
Well,
and
on paper, they lost. Who knows what deals were done on the side?
I was gonna say,
Well-
those are really expensive shirts. Were they Pendleton wool?
let's just say that when it got to the third airplane, they were real concerned about it because they figured they were going to lose $100 million on it before they even started work.
Oh no.
That's
can't
just
run a
pocket
company that
change.
way. So did you get out of there?
They have brought the entire workforce into a hangar that was fairly empty at that point in time because a lot of the other work had gone away.
Right. And,
And
they said you're all fired.
They said corporate has given us the instructions that we are to offer every one of you the opportunity to take a voluntary layoff.
Of course.
Yes.
You'll get 15% on your severance pay. You'll get the full benefits, all this. I don't know how
And
many
you'll
people-
avoid the involuntary layoff a month from now.
Mhm. 100,
What?
I think they were
Wait.
figuring 50 or 60 people would take that. They had 180 take it.
Oh, snap.
I was so torn on that.
And
Again,
then
at that,
the
at that
full
point in
solar
time-
eclipse came and you decided, whoa, maybe I better take them up on that. Because whenever
couldn't-
a solar eclipse happens, I just do the opposite of what I think I'm supposed to do.
well, there was a solar eclipse somewhere in there. I remember being out on the ramp in between the two hangars watching it.
August of 17.
Same ramp that when I first hired into the company, there was another 747 that would park there on a regular basis. That one had the title U.S. Air Force 28000 or 28001 that a certain individual used to fly to his ranch in Crawford.
Oh, I knew somebody that had a ranch in Crawford.
You
Right.
knew somebody who had a ranch in Crawford?
Well, I knew of him.
Past tense.
Yeah. I will say, as a former owner of a 747, it's always hard to find a place to park them. So I can
But
totally.
we used to park that one there.
Walmart takes
Uh,
even semi trucks. They would totally
What?
take. Yeah, they would totally take a plane. That's not a
What
problem.
Walmart is that?
I don't know. All of them.
And for those of you who didn't catch the reference, that was George Bush going to his ranch in Crawford with Air Force
Yes.
One.
Oh,
Oh, did he park it in the backyard?
At
sort of.
L3, yes.
So
But,
Clint, you left. Did you
so-
get out of there?
So I'm struggling with what to do. At that point in time, I had a kid or two at BYU. I had one back east. This was part of the 4 time zone era.
Got
My
it.
dad was in Salt Lake. My brother was in Salt Lake. And I'm going, I know there's going to be a bunch of change coming. And I could not
Mhm.
figure out what to do. And I was torn. I mean, really torn what to do on that one. I ended up on taking a 2-hour trip up north to the Dallas Temple, went through a session, spent some time in the celestial room. And the answer came to me fairly clear. It was, it's not quite time yet. You need to,
Got it.
okay, I will tell you that one of the things I did throughout my entire adult life was Boy Scouts. I was heavily involved in Boy Scouts.
Nice.
At that point in time, I had just started in my first term as the district chairman for the Longhorn Council Indian Nations District there in Waco. So
Nice. See,
That-
you're one of the, you're one of those people that I like to rub shoulders with, man.
any ward I'd ever lived in, I had somehow ended up as the Boy Scout committee chairman, among other
Oh.
jobs in. That was my common calling up until I left Waco. about the same time the church stopped doing Boy Scouts. But
And then they called you together and said, we're going to lay all of you off from your
3
church.
weeks later, they
callings.
did another layoff from L3. I managed to avoid that one. I don't know how, but I avoided that one. And that set up a couple of things. On the project I was on, there was at one point in time close to 20 engineers. There was 2 of us at the end of those 2 layoffs.
Wow.
And it worked out such that we had a couple of fairly big projects that came in shortly thereafter. And those 2 projects managed to set up and give me some experience that I wouldn't have got otherwise.
Okay.
And just as they finished up, I had an opportunity pop up that said, Clint, we're supporting a company out in Reno that's taking some old F5 airplanes. They're going to put a glass cockpit in them that's very similar to the glass cockpit you just put in I will use the phrase crop duster airplane. We called it OAX, but it was literally taking a crop duster airplane and turning it into a attack aircraft.
Yes, you attack them with crop dust.
Oh, it's we actually
No,
hang
no.
bomb racks on the thing. It was wonderful.
Okay, I missed.
So it's a low man's, it's a poor man's
F-16.
So I have a picture of the F5 because I was just really curious about it. I don't know if you can see this or not. Probably not. I wish that they could do like a screen share. It's actually quite interesting. I was trying to visualize this plane that you were talking about. I love planes, and it's quite cool looking. Definitely, I wouldn't say it's a crop duster though, but
no, that's the F5.
there you go. Yeah, the F5. Yeah.
The background now is an F5.
Yeah.
That's one of mine.
That's cool.
Nice. But you had to put the same kind of cockpit into one of those crop duster,
We put one of those
transition plane.
cockpits in a crop duster. The gal that was kind of leading that effort went out to Reno the first year. She just barely got married, went out to Reno, started working this program. They find out they're pregnant. Her doctor tells her she can't be traveling back and forth to Reno. They come to me and say, hey, can you take over for her? So in July of 2009, I start traveling out to Reno to work on these airplanes. It's behind me here.
Do you have an airplane that you can show us, that the crop duster that you converted?
I'll find one.
Okay.
So here's the thing, while you're looking for that, so most of you kind of know one of my favorite books is The Obstacle is the Way. And it's about stoicism applied to life. It's a Greek philosophy. But the idea behind it is that what you may perceive to be setbacks could be the very thing you need to experience success. And so it's this idea that, for example, I'm getting laid off, that's a setback. Oh, but it leads me to a position where I get trained to do something that prepares me for an even better position later on. Or it comes with me advancing and getting a pay raise, stuff like that. Or I go through a divorce, but it leads to me finding someone that's much more compatible with me and having a successful marriage, and so on.
My life philosophy, or whatever you want to call it, motto is, with every one door that closes, 3 more open up. And that one door that closes leads me to this.
I've got to say that's pretty close to my experience as well. Lockheed in Denver, that door closed. I end up Lockheed in Fort Worth. I worked on some neat stuff in Fort Worth. I had a lot of neat opportunities there. And it wasn't just limited to Fort Worth. I ended up out in Marietta, Georgia. I've been on the The production line for the F-22 was up at that time. The the C-130 production line is still running, but it was up and running on that at that time. I made trips out to Palmdale, California. I've been right up close and personal with the U-2. There's a lot of neat
Now, you
aircraft.
realize, Clint, that most of us do not understand what any of these letters mean that you are talking about. I mean, I'm an expert on
Hey,
these planes, so I
you
know.
two
Speak
as a
for
band.
yourself. Whatever, John. I may know more than my blonde
listen,
hair tells you.
I know our audience, and I don't know that a lot of them know that, but
Well, that's why I asked him.
but
to
apparently
show us
Brent
what F5
does.
is. Well, Brent is just walking Google. Brent doesn't matter.
right. So
I just know that U2 was a band in the 80s, and I think it's really cool that he was up close and personal with that. That's awesome.
yeah, that's what I was
That's why I'm
thinking.
asking him to show us these planes, because I mean, in my head, I kind of have an idea of what it is. When he said F5, I was like, I don't really know what F5 looks like, so I looked it up. But yes, I love planes. That's why I fly on them a lot. So did you find that, Clint?
Did I what?
Did you find that while we were all arguing?
I've got, let's see if I can do this. This is going to be faster and easier. Control, copy, chat. There you go.
These better be some really good looking crop duster planes, man. Because, you know, we're having to be patient.
We're having to be patient.
True. Patience is not John's top quality.
No.
Meanwhile, I'm just over here with my little jelly beans on the side going, yeah, show us this crop duster.
Yeah, it's a crop duster. It's actually, the airplane is called an air tractor.
Interesting.
But we put that cockpit in and outfitted it. While I was with L3 Harris, it didn't go too far, but we proved a lot of skills with it. And it opened up a couple of more doors for us. And we ended up putting that basic same cockpit plus some bunch of more stuff in these F5s like behind me here.
Wow.
And anyway, July, I start going out there and I'm spending about 2/3 of my time in Reno. Well, in May, I had just finished my 3rd year as the district chairman for Boy Scouts. They finally let me off the hook. I had a couple other things. I was heavily involved with the Heart of Texas Amateur Radio Club. I'd been the president a couple of years, past president for like 4 years, because one thing or another, the presidents after me mainly were dead. They passed away, but I ended up as past
That's one
president for
way to
like
move
4
your
years.
way up in the world is just,
But
you know, attrition.
I was finally kind of done with that as well. And so a lot of the stuff in Waco started to go, hey, I'm okay.
I'm free. Yeah.
So I started going out to Reno about 2/3 of the time. And that was kind of neat.
And at what point did you say, I just need to live here?
Now that goes on just a little bit further, you know, part of
Right.
going out to Reno is I'm sitting down, going out to dinner with a couple of their pilots and all of this out there.
Can I just say, if I were a pilot in the military and someone asked me, you know, I mean, what did you fly? I mean, if I told them an F-16 or an F-18 or something, that would be really cool. But to tell them that I flew an air tractor, that just, I don't know. That just doesn't sound the same to me.
Well, I will tell you that one of the cooler experiences I had in Reno after I got there, there's me, another guy from L3. There's 3 guys from Tactical Air. We went out for pizza. Everybody but me was drinking beer that night.
Oh, I see.
But I had sitting
You were
at
the
that table
designated driver.
with us, eating pizza and drinking beer, 2 former shuttle pilots.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
We've got 2 of them that actually work for our company right now.
That's awesome.
And, that was kind of an
Yeah, see, that would seem much more, exciting than air tractor. So I'm just saying.
Yeah, and these
Shuttle would be like, wow, that is
Yeah.
just like, that's right up there. Or Air Force One, or something like, but or Marine One for that matter.
Shuttle still
But
takes Air
what we
Force
do
One.
with these F5s, just so you guys, and this is probably a reference most of you will understand. There is a Navy base just a little bit outside of Reno, an hour or so, called Fallon Naval Air Station.
Got it.
Fallon Naval Air Station hosts the Fighter Weapons School for the Navy.
Ooh.
It's commonly referred to as Top Gun.
What?
Nice.
They made
awesome.
a movie about that.
Our pilots from Tactical Air Support fly these F5s as the bad guys to train our Navy pilots.
What? Actually, I think that would be the most exciting thing to do, would be to fly the F5s as a bad guy.
Mm-hmm. We've also got a contract now with the Air Force out of Klamath, Oregon. We're working on some additional contracts, but our biggest problem is we can't build the airplanes fast enough.
Wow. That's not a bad problem to have in a, in an economy where some things are, there aren't a lot of jobs out there in some.
Now, if you go back to the original, and there's a note on it in the comments here, the original Top Gun movie from the 80s. The big black Russian MiG in that airplane. Coat of paint on an F5. It was an F5.
Oh, check that out. Well, that's awesome, Clint. Hey, so we got like about 15, 20 minutes left before we start opening it up to questions. Let's go back to the idea of what we learned from the experiences, because it's a fascinating life. In fact, I was going to tell you, you probably are now the coolest nerd I know.
I agree.
I wouldn't call him a nerd.
He called himself a nerd earlier.
So what? I like planes too. So what am I? I'm not a nerd.
You're kind of a nerd, Terry.
Science and engineering. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
I had to make some decisions when this job got offered to me. They decided they were going to cut back on the L3 support, hire their own engineering team. They approached me and said, we're doing this. It just so happened that was after I had spent 3 months during the heart of the COVID lockdowns in Reno, solid as the only engineer from L3 in Reno. The fact I was divorced, the fact I was single, meant I could be away from home for 3 solid months.
Right.
It opened up a bunch of doors for me.
That's
awesome. In fact,
awesome.
I had gotten all of this opened up doors for me. Well, what I ended up with here is I had some decisions to make, but it came to me that I've been in the same singles pool, if you will, in the Denver-Fort Worth area, Waco, Austin, San Antonio, since 2009.
Right.
Time
to jump into another pool.
I had a lot of people that knew me, that knew my first wife, that knew my second wife. I'd gone to single adult activities with my ex-father-in-law after his spouse passed away.
Oh my land.
Okay, wait. John's.
Go to Reno, man. Go to Reno.
It just sent, I came out of that temple session with, I'm not going to be in Waco much longer, but I need to stick around. This opened up for me.
That's
in the
awesome.
meantime, my dad's passed away. One of the places where I went to growing up and through college was some recreational property we had up east of Camas, Utah. I got out here. I was just about ready to start buying a house when I hit COVID. COVID really did a number on me. I was wiped out for a month and a half.
Wow.
Completely.
Yeah, you said that.
I spent
I
4 days in the
got it.
hospital, all kinds of stuff. It changed my diet, they basically told me I had to change my diet. They figured out I had type 2 diabetes after that. So I'm dropped a lot of weight with COVID. Don't recommend it as a weight loss program, but it worked for me.
Yeah.
But I'm out here. I've got changes that's happened. It got time for me to start looking for a house out here. I found I was able to buy this place that was as close as I was going to find to a replacement for the cabin I had growing up. I'm now living
Nice.
that. I'll tell you, the single adult program around here needs some work. COVID's done a number on it. I think
But there
there's
are some
mistake
single
presidents that's made some
There's
mistakes,
something
but
to work with.
it's something to work with. Instead of 3 wards, 4 now in Waco, I've got 10 stakes within 30 minutes.
Yeah. Welcome to Nevada.
I've got, in that same 2-hour radius, I can be in Sacramento. There's a lot of
You're not far from
opportunities
Boise.
here. What's that?
You're not that far from Boise either.
I think it's about 6 to 8 hours. This is
Really?
still a haul,
From
yeah.
Reno?
Yeah, you're
It's
north
only-
of,
It's only
you're
4
north-
hours from Logan.
Boise's pretty much north of Salt Lake, and I'm on the west side of Nevada.
I thought Boise was on the west side of Idaho. So
Well, keep in mind, here's my house, and right through the middle of Lake Tahoe is the Nevada-California border.
no, go to Boise though, north of you.
I'd have a trouble bringing that up, but
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I think you're right under Boise, but
um, it's a
See,
little ways
now,
up. I looked
I'm a
when the
native
Boise Bash was
feedback.
coming up.
you're a new guy to the state. So
But anyway, I'm out here. I've had opportunities come up for these changes that a foundation was laid 15 years
Mhm.
ago.
right. So now
Yes.
you can kind of see how, and I'm going to guide you to the punchline just because we're going to move on here
Mhm.
pretty quick to the questions. But what I see in your story is that, and it reminds me of my own story, I think a lot of us can identify with it, is you start to see how God was kind of guiding you through all of these things. And of course, he had the vision the whole time of where it was leading you and the lessons it was teaching you and the skills you were developing and the character that was being built. But it's almost like you can see in what you're experiencing now, what, like you said, the groundwork was laid, a decade and a half, and maybe even earlier in your life too, if you really thought about it. And
What scares me, John, I'll just say
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
is, I can see that pattern. I can see
Mhm.
where it's led me. I'm 58, I'm a little older than most of this group, but that's okay. I detest
you're
the term
even older than
singles,
me, but barely.
but
Yeah, you're just a year older than me.
yeah, I mean,
Stop it.
yeah. So, but yet, looking back on the last 20 plus years and where I was to where I am now, what's the Lord got in store for me for the next 15 to 20 years?
I think he's got a lot in store for all of us in the next few years. And I bet we can all look back in our stories and they're all going to come in handy for whatever the next chapter in the story of this earth is going to be, which, we're told preparing for the second coming. At some point it's going to be the second coming, and I don't know when that will be, but it sounds like it's not that far off. And based on the way our leaders talk, and the idea would be that they're talking to Jesus about it. And so, yeah, and he's the one coming back. So I would imagine he knows a little bit about the timeline, but I think all of it, and whether that were happening or not, I think all of it prepares us for things later in our life. But even if not that, for things beyond this life too.
Well,
we
other
get to
thing
take
that
the lessons with us.
the other thing I want to point out is some of these changes I was led into kicking and screaming.
But
Right.
aren't we all
Others,
though,
I
John?
had to have the faith that, hey, maybe this is time to jump
Yeah, but Clint,
and
Clint,
be willing to jump.
We all go through that. I mean, I've even gone through changes where I'm just like, nope, this is not for me. Okay,
Not
here I
gonna do
go.
it.
Yeah. And it's just like literally when I say it's like pushing me off the cliff. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, you know, because I'm just a year younger than you, I realized that I can't say that.
You're out of your ever
Dang it,
loving-
John. As I've gotten older,
You're
I realized
mocking those of us who are literally our Clint's age.
As I've gotten older, I've realized that, you know, I'm just a little more easygoing and just go with the flow. And I'm just like, all right, what's in store for me? Like, you just don't know, but you have to just try. So
Mhm.
yeah.
But I think those lessons will help us endure some of the challenges, because I think the world will get harder before it gets better, but it'll get better too. And I think it'll help us both prepare for the hard times, but also prepare us to appreciate how amazing the good times are going to be.
Yes.
For having been through such challenging times.
Well,
I've even heard people say, you know, like when the apocalypse comes, it's almost like I'm not afraid of that because I feel like I've faced things that are harder than an apocalypse.
Yeah, but
You know,
isn't that kind of what's kind of preparing us for is that ending where we're just like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I will tell you,
Go ahead.
sitting in a hotel in Reno, I've gone through at least 4 minor earthquakes. That was a little discerning. It freaked me out at first. But, you know,
Yeah.
I'm in a situation here that I'm probably better off than a lot of people. And it's somewhat an accident that I'm here, but it's also trying to follow play the cards I've been dealt and try to follow the inspiration that I've had. And I
Mhm.
don't know what's going to happen. You know, where I'm working right now could fall apart tomorrow. Small companies do that. But we've got some really neat things going on. We got a lot of neat things happening. My worst scenario is I was looking for a job when I found this one. I am not the person to say a layoff is a bad thing.
Yeah.
To talk to you about how bad getting laid off is.
Yeah.
They've been wonderful to me.
In fact, I would bet that, and this is one thing I see in my clients when they get healthier, is they will start to take on this idea that whenever something quote unquote bad happens, they'll immediately say, what will this teach me? And what will this lead me to that's better? Like they just start and they just presume that's what it's going to be.
Mhm.
And as soon as I know when they get to that place, I know that I won't be with them much longer.
Yeah.
You know, that they don't need anything from me that they don't have already inside themselves at that point. And I sense
the other
that you've
thing
done
is
that.
there's about 3 things. One, they say whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, but it's amazing what you can live through there.
Mhm.
The other one is if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're always going to get what you've got. You've got to make some changes.
Yeah.
And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of us in the single adult program have opportunities, challenges. If we're not willing to take a few risks, to take some chances, to embrace some of the opportunities that we have, we may be stuck right where we're at for a long time.
Yeah.
And whether that's a good thing for you or a bad thing. I can say financially, I was probably better off in Waco. Cost of living is a lot higher here. Cost of a house is extremely higher here. I was debt free in Waco. I even had my house paid for. I had to borrow a little money to buy this place, but still, it's opportunities and it's future, and I'm kind of excited about it. And there's been lots of different times when, oh, woe is me and all of this, but yet work through it and fight through it, and we'll get there.
Well, and I think that's the greatest part of it is the growth, you know, that I handle situations with greater maturity, with greater resilience. And to me, that I look back on every challenge I've been through, including the ones where, you know, I wept bitter tears in the night and cursed God. Those were the things that really helped me grow the most, you know, and I've thanked him, you know, 100 times for every time I cursed him since. But and the reason is I just didn't see at the time, and I'm sorry, you know, and now I get it, and I'm actually grateful to you that you let me go through that. So I think we're at a point now where we can kind of open it up to questions. So what we want everybody to do is, if you want to raise your hand, and I'm going to have my two lovely assistants, Tara and Terry.
What?
Lovely.
Co-hosts, thank you. Not assistants.
Oh, come on.
I'll be a lovely
Gives you a
assistant,
hard
just so like
time.
Vanna White.
Tara doesn't mind being a lovely assistant.
No, I
It's not
like
all
Vanna.
about looks, John.
Right. Well, you're both lovely, and I just thought I'd go with that. But I'll have you two kind of look for who's raising their hand and that sort of thing. But
I just want to add as well, like what you're talking about, John. I think sometimes when we go through those experiences, it's very humbling as well. And it teaches us to stay humble and to stay grounded. And that's a very important thing as we develop into elderly people. Just speaking of myself here.
excellent. Thank you, Terry. One of
Wise
my
words
lovely
from the blonde.
co-hosts. And so, is there anyone who would like to ask Clint anything about either his life or the lessons learned over those years of ups and downs?
Well, I'm kind of curious. I mean, I see people kind of do this one way or the other. So when you've gotten laid out, which by the way, I've experienced something very similar recently, but are you like the kind of person who takes some time and sees what it shakes out, or do you get your resume together right away and send it out, or, you know, how do you attack it? Are you super proactive, or do you kind of just sit back and see what the Lord has for you? Because I mean, I love your outlook.
In both cases, I felt like I needed to get a resume together real quick. And I had opportunities for some really great resume help. And I was also given the opportunities for some professional high-end job hunting classes through my employers. The class I took from the church was better, surprisingly.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I actually sent a couple of my fellow workers that got their notice the same time I did over to the Carrollton, Dallas area to take that same class that I took.
That's
But
awesome.
I got my resume together fairly quick, and I was out there fairly quick. I was, if I'm remembering dates right, it was like November 16th was my last day with Lockheed in Denver. By December 4th, I was in Fort Worth, Texas on a job interview. December 5th, I had an accepted offer.
Good for you.
So Clint, we may have to have you back in the hot seat depending on what the economy does, and if people are looking for jobs or something like that, we're going to have to do like a whole episode on that. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm not the expert. I've looked into everything I've ever got.
Oh, you're being modest.
I'm in a job training, how to find a job training class. Somebody pulled out the newspaper and said L3 Harris, it was L3 at that time. It's got a job fair next weekend. I hurried up, got a resume, went to it, talked to some folks. Again, it was just a few weeks later, I was down there interviewing with them. It took a little longer to get the offer, but it was quick.
I mean, the proof is in the results, Clint.
To me,
of course, you're an engineer, so
you can sit and mope if you want, but I kind of think once you get that layoff notice, your job at that point turns to finding the next job.
I like that.
And as an engineer, if I'm a successful engineer, I'm eventually putting myself out of work. So I have to plan on moving on. There was a
I love that.
I waited till later in life to get a patriarchal blessing. I was back off my mission. I was in college. Went and got my patriarchal blessing. One of the statements in there was said, the Lord will use you in many different areas of his kingdom. I have moved around a lot. I have traveled a lot. There's been a couple of short stints, short-term stuff, but by and large, about 6 years. But I also had, while I was with Lockheed in Denver, I spent 6 months in Cape Canaveral, Florida. I spent time, a lot of time back on Long Island working with a company back there. I've had some neat experiences in many different areas, and it's been nice to be able to be helpful, even if it's just for a few months. I got to Reno. I had to find a place to stay fairly quick. Jumped into an apartment with COVID. I had signed the lease and was moving in before I had ever stepped into the apartment. That was weird.
Oh, wow.
But I was there for a year. I figured I'd be there about 6 months when I started with COVID and everything. I ended up in that ward for a year. It was a great experience. I think I made a little difference in that area, but then I moved up here in this house. Again, it's changes, but.
So I think one of the lessons I'm learning from your experience is just basically be open to wherever the Lord wants to use you and surrender to his will and just allow him to guide you where you need to be. Stop resisting.
Now, where that's hurt me a little bit is I'll just say that my income is probably a little bit above the median income. I've got a fairly good job. I meet a lady that lives some small town in the middle of nowhere someplace. That great lady, she might be, but if she's tied to that little town,
kind of hard to walk away from
I have to walk away because I need to be someplace where I can provide for my family.
No doubt.
Hey, Clint, it looks like we've got somebody with a question. Lisa, let's see.
Well, just in all fairness, Lisa is somebody I have known since the moment she was born. I was in the delivery room. That's my daughter. Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, she's allowed.
Hey, Dad. Hi, everybody. Sorry to hijack your fireside. Since this is being recorded, Dad, do you have like a quick summary or like a little soundbite that you want to offer for your daughters and grandchildren?
Aw.
Yay. Yeah,
I love
go
that.
for it.
That's like the
What's
sweetest
your
thing ever.
message to your children based on your life experiences?
Also,
I'm not sure I'd want to have them how to suffer through all 2 hours of this to get to this point. But let me just say, each of us have opportunities and things that we can accomplish in this life. But unless we're willing to reach out and take a chance, it's not going to happen. I remember a young lady that wanted to go to Southern Virginia University a while back. That's made a big difference in her life, whether she realizes it or not. She met her husband there. She got some experience there. It's set her up for the job she has now. Although I'll tell you, her degree and her current job have nothing to do with each other, but it still gave her a college degree and some experience that she can use. Now, would you agree with that, Lisa?
Yeah, SVU was huge as far as my personal development. Dad was really upset that I did not follow in the family tradition of attending BYU like my sisters did.
But isn't Southern Virginia kind of like a BYU East in a way?
Culturally, they're very similar. It's not owned by the church, and I think there's some
Right.
differences that occur because of that. It's also considerably pricier than BYU is, at least it was. while I
Yeah,
was
it's like a
there.
liberal arts college, or yeah.
And it's a whole lot smaller. It's about the size of the high school I went to.
I actually applied
Yeah,
to
SVU is tiny.
teach there, so. But alas, I was not meant to go.
Now, I will say this much. I've got 3 great daughters. All 3 of them have turned into be exceptional ladies. All 3 of them are married. One of them has been blessed with some kids. 2 of them have not at this point, and it may be a challenge for it to happen. I don't know all the stories there, but there's been a lot of hurt and a lot of heartbreak there. But they are 3 great ladies. All 3 of them have a college degree. All 3 of them are doing great things with their families. And the only thing I can say is I blame their mother for that.
That's got to be kind of a healing thing too, to really, to give credit where it's due, even to our exes where it didn't work between us, but to acknowledge, my kid's mom she really was a great mom to my kids. And, we often say to each other, we did one thing really well together, and that is that we brought 4 amazing kids into the world, and we really did co-parent well. We each had our gifts and the things we did well, and the other one would pick up where the other one left off if they weren't good at it, and vice versa. And so, and I think that's good for our kids, to know that, our parents can be friends and they can still speak well of each other. So,
Now,
and we don't all have that. I realize
to be fair, I really have not had too much conversation with wife number 1 in many years.
Right.
I kind of
So
know
even
what's
better.
going on with the kids. Wife number 2, I have not talked to since 2012.
Right.
Barely have any knowledge of what's going on in her life anymore.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I will also say this. Even though both of those marriages did not turn out well in the end, I gained a lot from both of them.
Right.
And I don't regret either one.
Right.
I'm a little sad over how they ended, but I'm not sad that we got married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really believe that. And I think we'll even be more grateful when, whether in this life or the next, I think all of us, if we can just remain faithful, I really believe in the promises, and that we will have those relationships at some point. And I don't presume that most of us can't have them in this life. And I think how much more will they mean to us, to have, I know people who found that really amazing marriage after either 1, 2, or more divorces. And I have an aunt, for example, she's on her 3rd marriage, and he and her have created the most beautiful marriage together. And I think she is his 3rd marriage as well. And I love it. I love to watch it. It gives me hope. I think it means more to them knowing what they went through in those other relationships. They really appreciate each other a lot better. And so, see, there's even lessons, beyond that. But I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned from those experiences is, I've learned to be grateful for not just romantic relationships, but good relationships in my life where I don't have to, walk on eggshells or anything like that. So.
All right. We're running out of questions.
Yep. Well, and we are not bound to a full 2 hours necessarily, but is there anyone else out there that wants to ask Clint something about his experience or on the topic of tonight, which is learning from change, gaining experience from change?
Would you say that you rushed into your second marriage, Clint, or do you think that you went into it I see this a lot. Like the second marriage is always kind of short, and a lot of people just admit, they weren't used to being single, so they wanted to have somebody again. Describe that. What kind of like how your second marriage went down, basically.
Well, I will tell you, I knew my second wife a whole lot longer than I knew my first wife when we got married, but both of them are fairly short.
Yeah.
Wife number one, we were married 3.5 months after we met. Wife number two was about 6.
Okay.
Yeah. I get you.
Yeah, I've always been curious about that.
So you're more deliberate now.
The fact that I have stayed single since 2009 says I'm probably a little more deliberate.
I think you're very deliberate. So you might have to take your own advice and be a little more.
And usually about
bold.
every 2 to 3 years, whether I think I need to or not, I actually go out on a date.
Good for you. Keep the dream alive, as they say. So I will say, and I said this to someone I was on a date with recently, but I think the 2 mistakes I made after my first marriage ended when I dated was I gave up on people too fast and I locked in on people too fast. And what I mean by that is, I'll look back and I think that there were probably some women where maybe I didn't have the vibe, or and it didn't turn into 2 or 3 days, I just gave up. And I look back on them now, and some of them I think would have been better relationships for me. And then I look at who I did lock into, because I was actually engaged twice during that time, and one of them didn't work out. But I look back, and then one of them we got married, and that didn't work out. And it wasn't that I think that those women weren't great in their own way. It's just that it didn't work out. And I think I locked in on them too quickly. And I think I gave up on people too quickly. And I don't know how you feel about that. But that's why I'm more deliberate now, is because I really want to take the time to get to know someone before I either give up on them or lock in, either one. Just take a little more time on that experience. And I'm not saying that doesn't have to be years necessarily. Once you're dating someone, I think you can know within a few months, but then another few months to, just kind of make sure that we really get each other, Well,
one of the things I've learned over the years is anything I say can and will be held against me in the court of female opinion.
Yes.
And
Oh boy.
I'm probably going to say something here that may upset a few people, and
No, just say it.
But
Yeah, you're good. You already look like the devil in all those
that's
flames.
part of being on the hot seat, and you can tell it's getting a little warm here.
You went from winter to summer.
We say that now, and then after you say it, we'll probably say you should have said that.
There's
Go ahead.
a party for a reason.
I can usually, I feel like I can usually, I will use the term discard somebody
I like that word, discard.
within an hour. Usually
That's normally what narcissists
15 to
do.
20 minutes of conversation.
That's usually what
Oh.
happens to me. I get discarded.
And
Don't
there will
laugh
be
too hard,
something that
John.
comes up in the conversation that doesn't sit right, or it's something that,
No, there can be
it's a deal breaker
breakers.
in a way.
Yeah.
And
Like when she sits down and she goes, "Oh, you thought I was 50? I'm 25."
Well,
Sorry, I had to.
the other thing, there's one is kind of dumb, but as soon as a woman tells me she's got cats, I'm done.
Oh, I'm so with you there, brother.
What?
I'm allergic to cats.
I don't like.
Got it.
Cats. Me too.
And I cannot see a relationship working when the first thing I asked a woman to do is give up her pet cat.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
not- mm.
Well, but here's where I'm coming with this. See, to me, even something like that can be a conversation piece where you say to themselves, listen, I'm allergic to cats, and I don't imagine, I would say if it ever gets to the point where you're in,
John, I've already played this out in my head. It's when he shows up to dinner and she's covered in cat fur. And he's like, how many cats do you have? And she's like,
Terry, people change.
I know,
People
they changed
get
their
rid of their
shirts.
cats.
They changed their shirts.
I would just ask, how old is your cat? And if your cat's like 13, it's like, okay, let's date, get to know each other, and then your cat will probably be dead by the time we get married.
Oh my gosh.
Cats will live forever if you're waiting for them to die.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. That you got a point there. Okay, I'm just gonna
Here's
sit back
the
and listen.
thing, Clint.
You need to change your background, John, to the fire.
Right.
So Clint, listen, I have a cat. I will tell you right now, I have a cat. But I have a cat because I hate spiders, and my cat kills spiders. I don't particularly like my cat. I'm sorry, Echo, but she really does kind of drive me nuts. If I found someone who would kill spiders, I would get rid of my cat. See?
Seriously? You
See
get rid
there,
of your
Clint?
cat? What?
Pay attention. Clint, let me ask Clint real fast. Clint, are you willing to kill spiders?
Clint, are you
I don't
willing
know
to
if you
date
can
Tara?
see this at all. I'm gonna get up by the camera, but there's some scars on this finger here.
Okay,
From where
wait,
a
From
spider
punching a
bit me
spider in
in
the face?
2006, where I actually had to have surgery to get the bite cleaned out.
That sounds like a
From a
really
spider?
I
nice
hate
cat.
spiders.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
But here's
Clint, the other question is, would you be willing to date Tara?
Oh, stop it. Oh my
Stop
gosh.
Boise is not that far away, Clint.
Right.
Okay, so listen.
I've already timed it for
Clint,
you. It's on
ignore
Google
them.
Maps.
Right. Terry's
What?
just hijacking this whole
I am not. I'm
conversation,
being John right now.
right? No, I'm not
You
trying
know,
to set
I'm going to
you up,
say it
Clint.
this way for what it's worth. And I have been fortunate to hear Tara when she was on the hot seat. I've heard her as the host here a lot of times. I've heard a lot from the people that went to Boise Bash and the fantastic work she's done putting that together. If I had the opportunity to take Tara out on a date, I would take Tara out on a
Aw.
date to get to know her better.
Perfect.
You know what? She
So
is.
there's two things that separate
she's
Tara and
blushing
I.
now.
So Tara, there's two words that separate us, okay? Maturity and immature. She's mature, I'm immature. It's like John's yin and yang.
Well, which is odd for a 57-year-old woman. to
I
still be
know.
mature.
I'm like Peter Pan without the gender thing.
Right, exactly. So, Clint, listen, buddy, I think you are such a great guy. We are so glad that you've been on with us tonight. And I got to tell you, I love these shows because especially with the standbys, the people that are in the audience every week, in and out, because we get to know you a little bit, but we never really get to hear the story. And so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your life with us. If anybody doesn't have anything else to share, I think this might just be a good time to wrap it up. Does anybody want to say, Terry, do you want to say anything before we stop the recording?
In my mature years, I've realized that I've said plenty tonight.
Okay.
I think this was a great podcast. I mean, I knew absolutely nothing about Clint. I think this has been, this has been a good eye opener.
I will say, so all the podcasts that I've done, Clint's usually like the quiet one, back with his mic off, just kind of absorbing everything. He's kind of what I would do in the after party. And I'm just floored because I did not know that he had this amazing background. So yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a fascinating story. So Clint, thank you for coming on, having